In this video, let's take a quick look at accepting or rejecting GNSS raw data. So I've got a survey that we did. We went ahead and located lot corners and staked out some points online so the owner could put up a fence if they were interested. And when we were down here in the south end, we're under some pretty big timber. And I want to show you that I ended up with one observation that was afloat that didn't have very good position. And I want to show you how we can go about rejecting that, particularly when we compute GNSS averages. So here, this information is showing me that my RMS values for this 22 float are pretty high, and the PDOT value is pretty high, and I knew that. So when I was out there, it's the one reading I didn't get a fix on, so I just labeled it 22 float instead of 22. And 22 is this center point down here. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to relabel this 22. And because it's an existing point with existing raw data, I'm just going to keep that raw data there. So that's going to be just fine for us. And now I'm going to come up and tell Traverse BC that I want to compute GNSS averages for the entire survey. And I'm going to use the existing point label to match up with the other GNS points that we're observing. So this is going to tell me now that I've got two observations for point 2022. And here are those same values again. So here's that RMS, Y, X, Z, and that PDOT. And the instructions say select one or more observations, then check to accept or uncheck to reject. So I'm simply going to uncheck to reject that observation. And of course, I won't be computing any averages because I don't have an average to compute. I don't have multiple points now with that. So I could simply update the average based on the one observation that's out there. And I want to come back now and look at this point here. I'll highlight the one below it. Can you see that we've rejected with the strike through here? In fact, if I go up to the format view and bring up the font formats, and let's change the raw data to something like a blue that we can see here a little better. But we see rejected raw data is always strike through. So I'm going to change all the raw data in this traverse to blue. So any place there's a raw observation, in this case, these are GNSS RTK observations. They're blue. And I've rejected this one. So I can go back to the GNSS averages anytime, and I can see that that observation is rejected. But I can also come into that survey point. So let's just right click, go to the survey point properties. Here's the GNSS average for just this one point. And again, I see that that observation has been rejected. And if I want, I can check it here, just like I did earlier, and accept it and use that to compute an updated position for that point. Or I can reject it. Now it's not part of the computation of that point. I also can come in to the traverse view here, and I can right click that point, modify point, and I can accept the raw data and go back and re-average that. Or I can say I can just reject it from here, reject the raw data, and now I can go back and say let's average that point now. Modify point, point properties, GNSS average, and with it rejected, let's compute that average there. And again, there's only one other observation, but if I had 5 observations and rejected just this one, the other 4 would be used to compute the average. Okay, so a real quick look at how we accept or reject GNSS observations, multiple observations for averages, or in this case, we just simply removed one entirely and just used the other fixed observation for the position of point 22.